This is Matisse Steibel, and you're catching the breeze on the Blazers balcony with Brooke Olzendam and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino, episode 162 of the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I am Casey Holdahl. I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, their palatial state in Southwest Portland. First time we've been back here in a while. Not the first time in a while. That's a weird way to put things. Brooklyn Olzendam. Brooke, how are you doing? I should stop calling you Brooklyn, by the way. That's really not your actual name. But
everyone has a different name for me.
Yeah.
And I go by all of them.
If Lynn was somewhere in your name, it would probably make a little more sense too, but it's not. So
yeah, my it's actually nice when people call me that because my grandfather called me that.
Oh, okay.
Growing up, just Brooklyn, he just always called me that, and so it makes me think of him. So that's nice. I like it when people call me Brooklyn.
All right, well, never mind. And we're here with my good friend Brooklyn Olzendam. So, how you doing, Brooke?
I'm good. It's funny. Last night's game, a couple was standing, or maybe it was Monday night's game. A couple was standing by set and was trying to talk, and I had my ears, so I have to take my ears out so I can hear. And it was really cute. They just looked, they waved and looked down and pointed at their little girl, their daughter, who's like maybe 3. I'm terrible at ages. They're like, her name's Brooklyn. I was like, woo! So yeah, some people think my name is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So it's all good. It doesn't matter to me.
I hope they're podcast listeners.
I hope so too. Hi guys,
shout out
cute
to them.
family.
Yeah. Which I feel like we've gotten a lot of. At least I have personally gotten a lot of like, hey, we appreciate the podcast stuff lately. I know we get a fair amount of that, and it's always surprising to me how much we get of it, but I feel like it's been more recently, so I really appreciate that. So thank you to all the people out there who listen and participate and subscribe and just generally don't listen to what we say, which is very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I say thank you too. We much appreciate it.
Very much. Well, the Portland Trailblazers getting to 500, Brooke. We are in the waning days of the 2025-26 season, but still plenty to play for your Portland Trailblazers, getting, as I mentioned, back to 500 by winning 5 of their last 6 games, the most recent being a 130-99 victory versus the Milwaukee Bucks on March 25th at Moda Center. That was preceded by a 134-99 victory versus the Brooklyn Nets, also at Moda Center, and a loss to the Denver Nuggets in the final game of the road trip, 128-112. But nonetheless, Trailblazers playing some pretty good basketball against some not very good teams from time to time here, but getting it done. And, and that's something that this team has had some issues with from time to time this year, is really, getting out on teams and then extending leads and then being able to kind of win going away. That's been something that they've struggled at times, but they are not struggling with that right now. They are doing what they need to do in order to put themselves in position to, well, one, they are qualified for the play-in. They are locked into the play-in. The worst they could finish is 10th. So they will be in postseason play, if nothing else, with an opportunity to get to the playoffs. But now it's really about improving their position in that play-in. Because if you end up 7-5, or 7 or 8, you only have to win once. If you end up 9 or 10, you have to win twice. There, obviously, the 7th team gets a home game. The 9th team gets a home game. I shouldn't say obviously, because that's not obvious, because nothing about the play-in tournament is especially obvious because it's still pretty new. But either way, a lot to play for the Portland Trailblazers, and they seem to be taking it the way you would want a team to take it. And then Tiago talked about that quite a bit. Well, they've been talking about it since the road trip, actually, too. The idea of trying to treat this run like playoff games because they're important games, the games they have to win, they're fighting for position. And so they've been telling that and talking to the team about that for the last couple of weeks, at least on the last road trip, because that again, that's something that has been a reoccurring theme. But Tiago talked about it a bit more after the game versus the Bucks, just about the need to understand the assignment, as I believe what he said, and understand what they're playing for and the way you have to play when you're involved in games that matter at this point in time in the season, which a lot of the guys on this team have not really been in that situation before. So some fits and starts, but they're getting it done. Again, they've gotten some blowout victories versus both the Nets and the Bucks, and even on the road trip as well. The Nets the last time, and then the Pacers. And the Pacer game, I guess, kind of speaks to what I'm talking about a little bit. A game where they should have won that game by a lot more. The Pacers kind of pushed back in the final moments of that game and put a little bit of a scare into the Blazers. I think got it down to 3 points at one point in time. And I think maybe that kind of got the team a little more focused, and it at least gave Tiago like an object lesson to be like, hey guys, like that's the thing I've been talking about. We're better than these teams. these teams aren't even necessarily trying to win right now. We should be beating these teams, and there should not be any doubt about it. And that game versus the Pacers, there was just enough doubt to where I think that kind of locks in the team a little bit. They're like, oh boy, yeah, we can actually lose these games if we don't do what we need to do. And the subsequent games since that, as I mentioned, the game versus Timberwolves, one of their best wins, I would say, in 2026 at least. Granted, they didn't have Anthony Edwards or Naz Reid, but still a very good team. You're on the road. Blazers were able to rally back in that game, thanks in large part to Jeremy Grant, to get that win. And then you lose the next game to the Nuggets, but then you come back and you really, spank the both the Nets and the Bucks. So it seems like the Blazers are doing what they need to do at this time of the season in order to put themselves in a situation where they can have some success in the play-in and then hopefully maybe even in the playoffs. Brooke?
Yeah, I really appreciated Tiago Splitter, how candid he was about these conversations, because, sometimes people want to say, well, we don't really talk about it that much. We just want to be focused on the next game, which is also true. You want to game by game. But it is, you got to talk about it, and I think that you have a good point about they had a scare, and these games matter. Every single one matters right now. And so I thought that was really smart of him to do that, to really, like, I don't want to say call it out, but say, hey, we can't ease up. We can't right now. So the things he said last night after the game were just, they hit home. Like, I know Michael and I were like, I really appreciate that, he's willing to talk about that. And we're all talking about it, especially guys that haven't yet been to the postseason. I think it's really important as a remander, like, okay, that we got something to play for. And this is exciting. This is the first time you've been able to have something to play for the postseason. Like a guy like Scoot, hasn't had that opportunity. And I think it's important right now for Drew too, to kind of help those young guys out. And I spoke with him a little bit about that, because he's obviously had a lot of postseason experience. And he's one of those guys that Tiago said the other night too, that when he's writing up a play, or he's talking about what way he thinks they should do, he will ask Drew, like, Drew, what did you think about? What do you think? I think that he's the only player that he's like really called out, saying, "What do you think about this?" So we're relying on the experience of guys like a Drew Holiday, and so I think he's going to be key in this. Obviously, Dame too, even though he's not playing. I just think it's really important for the younger guys who haven't been through this experience yet to really take advantage of having these vets that have had a lot of playoff experience. But I love that they're talking about it, and love that they're telling us that they're talking about it, because we're all talking about it. Yeah. I was just watching on my phone last night the Warriors and the Clippers. I totally scoreboard watch. I've been doing it for a long time. I can't help it. I have to see the Western Conference standings like 10 times a day, especially now. It's going to get even more. But great that the team won and they're at 500, but I'm excited for the next week to see the movement that can be made in the Western Conference. Yeah,
we were talking about it before clicking the record button, that those two games versus the Clippers, those are the two games that I think that's going to decide kind of where the playoff or the play-in positioning, and there's too many P's out there. The play-in positioning kind of shakes out. You would assume, at least if things go the way that you assume that they would, and which, is probably not a safe assumption, because, the Mavs are they're not in the play-in, but they're playing some decent basketball. They're at least trying still. The Pelicans, same idea, a team that's, they're not going to be in the play-in, but they're still trying to win games. And I think, especially for the Pelicans, I don't think they even own their pick next year, so they have no reason but to try to play well. Why not? So they need to take care of business in those games, but it's those two games versus the Clippers that I think are going to decide if the Blazers, are in 9th or 10th, or even 7th or 8th. And 7th, the Suns are in 7th right now, and they have a little bit of separation from the rest of the pack, but they have not been playing especially great basketball either. So, there's always a potential to get up there, but I think you're more likely looking at shooting for the 8th seed if at all possible. But if nothing else, trying to stay in 9th above the Warriors. So some stuff to get figured out there. But to your point about kind of Tiago, I thought it was interesting. They've obviously won their last two games comfortably. You had the win versus the Nets where Toumani had a career high, 35 points for Toumani Camara. Way to go, Toumani. I think it was at 35. Yep. Did I get that right? Yep. Awesome. Yeah. Way to go, Toumani, on 9 of 11 shooting, which is great. And then you beat the Bucks 130-99. scooped with 23 points, a bunch of guys with double figures, another great grade for Donovan Clingan, who we'll talk about here in a minute. But in the post game of both of those games, I thought it was interesting that Tiago talked about the things that he wants the team to improve on. Like, he's not getting up there and being like, yeah, that was a great game for us. That's awesome. That's great. He talked about Toumani, and obviously people wanted to know his thoughts about Toumani's offensive performance. And he said those things. But then he always made sure to bring it back to Toumani's defense and the way that Toumani plays defensively and what he gives them defensively. The game versus both the Nets and the Bucks, the questions are, what you think of the win? Like, team's playing pretty well, shooting better than 50% from the field. That's great. And, those are all true when he says those things. But then he's also like, well, we turned the ball over too much. And, I don't like the way we started in the game versus the Nets. Like, there's always we need to improve. It's a lot less like, hey, we're doing great. We're awesome. Like, we're rounded into form, and a lot more, yeah, these are good. And I'm glad that we're playing well, but we still need to make improvements if we're going to be successful. Because, obviously Tiago knows some of these teams that the Blazers are playing right now are, again, not especially concerned about winning. And he knows that they're going to go up against better teams in the play-in regardless of where they end up. It's going to be Phoenix and the Clippers and the Warriors, all of which are pretty good teams. So they're going to have to play better than they've played versus the Nets and the Bucks in order to beat the Clippers and the Suns and the Warriors, even if they've won those games by 30-plus points. So I feel like that also speaks to just the way that they're trying to kind of get guys kind of in the right mindset about what we're trying to do. And winning games is good, and we need to win games in order to get to where we want to go. But the way that you win those games right now is important, and particularly against teams that you should be winning against regardless. We want you to play in a certain way and with a certain intention and with a certain attention to detail that goes beyond just getting the win. Like, we wouldn't be just satisfied beating this team. We need to play a particular way. We need to see improvement, and we need to kind of figure out who is going to be playing when these games really start to matter. Because that was something I asked Tiago on the last road trip. Was just like, I don't remember exactly how I put it, but basically I was like, you talked a while ago when you got guys back that it was going to take a little bit of time and some tinkering to figure out what the rotations were going to be and who's going to be in and who's going to be out and who's playing minutes and when are they going in and out. And basically I was like, do you feel like you've kind of got that figured out? And he's like, no, we don't. We're still figuring that out. And at this point in time in the season to say that, I think it's an indication that they're like, we're really trying to figure out what the right mix is for this team. And that might not necessarily be the same thing from a night to night basis. And we're experimenting with some things still. We're seeing how things work, and if it's something that we can maybe apply to the play-in / potentially playoffs. So a lot of the games right now do feel to me like they're almost like little experiments about how they want to play when they're in a situation where it's either win or go home, which is what it's going to be in the play-in. So you hope that progress is being made there. I think, again, both the games versus the Nets and the Bucks, if you're going to have complaints about either one of those games, I think it would be turnovers. That is a situation for this team that has been an issue all year long. I think in some respects, you just maybe have to kind of be like, hey, that's kind of who we are, and we're just going to have to deal with it. But some progress being made, it seems like. A lot of guys seem like they're playing some pretty good basketball right now. But you need to kind of finish out strong if you're going to have any chance of putting yourself in a position in the play-in where you could conceivably advance to a playoff. Yeah,
Tiago's very honest and very to the point, doesn't skirt around, and will say exactly what he's thinking, and I appreciate that about him. And it's been a couple themes for me. Obviously, the turnovers, and I always laugh when. I'm up on the set, so usually, on the road we're there, but I always kind of laugh when people ask, like, what do you think the turnovers are about? Like, there are, you can go a couple different ways. You can say, well, they are taking the foot off the gas. They're just being, you could go a couple different directions, but sometimes you're like, I don't know. Yeah. If I knew, we would be having less turnovers. So, I just always laugh when he's asked about that. But, I feel as though less turnovers out rebounding the other team is so key. And we talked about this last night too. It really does feel when it is lopsided, or if they just win outright, the rebounding battle tends to lead to wins. And so that's another key for sure. The fast start, yes, but then, which has been very key to the last few games, fast start, but then also when the third quarter starts, maybe kind of start over there and say, let's get a fast start to the second half.
Yeah.
And they've done a good job of that too recently. But that's been something we've seen in the past where, giving up leads in the second half, even after a fast start. So fast start, continuing to build on the lead by taking care of the ball, rebounding, sharing the ball. They did a fantastic job of that. On Wednesday, finding each other. I think the first 10 buckets were assisted, 10 straight, and they were finding each other. It just felt like very fluid in that game on Wednesday. Like nothing was forced. It was finding the right guy, finding the open man, the extra pass. It was very smooth, and that was fun to watch. So I do think we're seeing improvement, and I think there is a bit of I hate that word, but urgency as it may be, because that's where we're at in this season right now to not only hold on to that spot, but possibly move up. So I don't know, from what I've seen the last few days have been really reassuring to me. I think they've by winning by the amount they have, I just love the fact that it's not just get the win. It's like, well, we should win this one by 30.
Yeah.
And they continue to push. So I've seen a lot of improvement, and I know, and I appreciate Tiago putting it out there. Like, these are the areas that I would like to see improvement. It's funny, they always say, or not always, but people will be like, start with a compliment, then you can say something negative, then finish it with
a sandwich.
Yeah. He's got like a half a sandwich, but he's got one and then another. But in a great way.
Yeah.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, there's some times where I was like, oh, okay, that's not where I was taking necessarily, but sure, all right, let's talk about that. So yeah, and I think too, particularly in the last two games versus the Bucks and the Nets, I think there's something to be said about holding teams under 100 points.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that, even the game with the Timberwolves, I think they only allowed 104 points in that game. So, those are instances where you're going to win that game regardless, but let's see if we can hold them under 100. And let's see if we can not turn the ball over 20 times. And you're talking about rebounding. That you're exactly right, Brooke. This team's, when they are successful and when you're like, why were they able to win this game? Mm-hmm. It usually comes down to rebounding, particularly offensive rebounding, because of second chance points, which is this team thrives on second chance points. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, and they take a lot of them. So they got to generate points in the half court in another way. And the way that they generally do that is through second chance points. And one of the reasons being because Donovan Clingan has emerged as the NBA's best offensive rebounder this season. So that's something too that I think they're trying to, like, let's really dominate the boards. Let's see if we can clean up some of these turnovers, and not the live ball turnovers. Okay, we'd rather not have them, but if you're being aggressive and you're turning the ball over, okay, let's cut out these stupid turnovers, the throwing the ball out of bounds, the lazy inbounds pass. Like, we gotta nip those things in the bud. We gotta stop doing that stuff as much. And if we can do those things, we give ourselves a chance. And particularly if we're healthy now, I think, you've seen that, they're mixing up some of the lineups. It's like sometimes it's City, sometimes it's Chris, sometimes it's Blake Wesley, sometimes it's Scoot. Like, it really is kind of dependent on what they're trying to do that night. And I think which is cool too. Like, they're able to kind of play in different ways, or at least throw out different skill sets when they're healthy, that I think, from a game to game basis, if you're playing a team where you're like, well, we might need a little more perimeter defense in this one, maybe you go with Blake. And if you're like, well, we need to kind of get a little more creation, you go with Scoot. Or, if we need more energy, we go with City. But if we need someone that can kind of play the 4-5, we'll go with Chris. Like, so they've got a bunch of different guys that on the margins they're kind of experimenting with and trying different things out with, and I think it's working fairly well. And again, it's good to see that right now it's not just about getting the win. It's about, like, we need to be playing a certain way if we're going to have any success. And I think when you've had the injuries the Blazers have had this year, it's hard to do that. But when you're healthy, you can kind of, again, you can try some things out. You can work on trying to play a different way. And you can't necessarily do that when you were injured, particularly like when all the guys were out and, Denny was having his run. It's like, we can basically only play this way. Mm-hmm. And luckily it worked pretty well, but like, it's not necessarily a super sustainable way to play. So let's get back to it being a little more egalitarian and kind of everyone else is doing a little bit more rather than really relying on one guy to kind of set the table for everybody. So it seems like they've kind of gotten to that point. Still, again, some very important games to go here. Friday versus the Mavericks, and then Sunday, the last Sunday fun day of the year, versus the Washington Wizards, before heading off to that one game at LA Clippers, which again, that game that's the one for this team. That game will decide a lot about where the Blazers are going to end up in the play-in, and then playing the Clippers again 4 games later, the second to last game of the season at Moda Center. Should be interesting and kind of exciting. Again, like to have something to play for this time of year. And, it'd be nice if they were already in the playoffs. But to just have some juice this time of year after, the last couple seasons where that wasn't really the case, just a nice change. And I think a good way to kind of not send this season off, but a nice way to finish the season out is by having some games that actually matter and that you need to win, and that there's still like some things to get figured out on this team. Like I think that's to be at that point of at this point of the season, it's a little unorthodox. Not that you have something to play for, but that you're still like kind of trying to figure out some things. But it also gives you really a reason to pay attention, and I think also gives you some indications of what the team might look like going forward. So some real interesting basketball here in the last, almost less than 3 weeks of the season.
That's crazy. No, it's great experience.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, God, is this almost done?
Seasons are so weird. Sometimes it feels like it is dragging.
Like in that like December, January, you're like, this is... Yeah, we're in this forever.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're looking towards the end. You're like, how did that happen so quickly? It's so funny. But this one, there's been like different iterations of this season.
Yeah,
there's like seasons within the season. So, I think it's a great experience for everyone. I'm excited for them. I'm excited for everyone, fans too. I mean, they've been showing out. I mean, they always do, but it's been really fun lately. I
noticed we're trying to do a few different things in the arena recently too. I've noticed like they had that like clap thing last night. Like I remember that I saw something similar to that in Oklahoma City, and I was like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's very interactive. We do a lot of fun things. And as you mentioned, Sunday Family Fun Day. Michael and I get axed. We get kicked down to the basement for the kids. The kids overtake our set. Them kids.
What they say about that?
Them babies. No, but that's really fun though. I think that's been a huge hit this year. The Family Fun Days have been great. I love it, and it's early game. Get the kids home. Get them in bed before the school week starts. So I think that's been really fun. But also, I just wanted to quickly. We touched on it, but I know this involves you too. The night that Toumani had his career high, and we had the walk off, and it was his glass night. Obviously, that's when we talked about a lot. And so we were thinking, well, I had 2 glasses because we were up on set with them. So I'm thinking, well, we got to make these a part of the walk off. So first I was just bringing them up one, and then like, let's do 2. We'll cheers. It'll be cute. And so then I was thinking, then let's have. I think it was Greg's idea to have him sign the actual glass. I'm like, great idea. So then I hadn't really thought about what we were going to do after that. So he signed. He goes, "Do you want me to sign yours?" I was like, "While we're here, sure." So he signs mine, which I smudged when I put it in my bag. I know, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I do that all the time. And so he goes, "What should?" And so Toumani looks at me and goes, what do I do with it? And I go, "Oh, just give it to a kid or something." And he kind of looks at me and double takes and okay, and then runs off. And then I get a text from Casey after the post game in the locker room that Toumani was a little irked with me because he didn't want to give it to someone. He wanted to keep it.
I don't even have he's like, I don't even have one of the glasses for myself yet. Like, why do I got to give them all away? And I was like, well, that's Brooke for you. She's always taking stuff out of your pocket.
Oh gosh, please. First of all, I gave it to him. But the funniest thing was, I'm like, of course they have to put some aside for the player that is it's their glass.
One would think.
You would have to think. So then I started worrying about it. I was like, oh no. Well, they have to, though, right? They have to.
Of course. Yeah,
but
no,
so they do.
They will get a bunch of glasses.
They did, but it was really funny because the next game, Wednesday, I interviewed him pregame, and I brought that up. I said, I heard that you were a little annoyed with me that I made you give that glass away. I go, did you get your glass? He's like, oh, yeah, I got a ton of them. I was like, I had a good feeling that was going to work out that way, but it was so funny when you texted it to me. I'm like, of course he has some. That's not the only glass he's going to get. I mean, it's his night.
And Brooke was like throwing out, she's like, well, I happen to know that he at least has 130 glasses that are squared away for him, so I don't know what he's complaining about.
I heard that. I heard 120, actually, and I don't know if that's accurate, but he said he got a big box.
Yeah, no, Toumani's glasses are going to get taken care of. I've had a couple of very funny interactions with Toumani as of late. So in Denver, we were talking to Donovan after the game, and I can't even remember what we were talking about, but like, I know you've probably done this before too. When you're interviewing players sometimes, like a lot of times for me, like I'm looking at the other players who are kind of in earshot and seeing like what their reactions to what they're saying are. And like Toumani was kind of like reacting, and I kind of like I side-eyed him, and I was like, what? And I kind of gave him like, what? And he was like, nothing. And he was like, you're funny, man. I was like, funny how? And he's like, it's like, you're just like looking at people like in the locker room. And I was like, that's the job, is to kind of pay attention to things. The other thing this was super funny in Indianapolis. So there was a woman sitting courtside who had a half Blazers, half Pacers jersey. And it said like Obama Camara, something like that. And I was like, and so I took a photo of it, and I was like, I don't know exactly what she's going for here. Like, there's a Toumani piece, but like, I was like, I don't know, but I was a little confused. And so like, I was kind of looking, and I was like, oh, she must be a Dayton fan, because it was a half Toumani Camara, half Obi Toppin jersey. And I didn't realize that Obi Toppin had gone to Dayton, which is why I didn't put it together right away. But then I was like, oh, there you go. Well, that makes sense. She must be a super Dayton fan. Like, good for her. Mm-hmm. And, so I mentioned it to Toumani after the game, and I was like, did you see that woman who was wearing the half your jersey, half Obi Toppins? And she was like, oh. I was like, he's like, she like showed it to me and was like, hey, was like really excited about it. And he gave her a like, I don't really get it. You give it like the hand mid so thing. 'Cause he was like, I didn't understand what it was. And I was like, yes, because it was confusing because she had the Obi Toppin part over the Blazer jersey.
It was very confusing.
And the Toumani part over the Pacers jersey portion of it. And I was like, yes, she didn't. Obviously, she's a huge Dayton fan. And he legitimately felt bad because he was like, so she was obviously a huge Dayton fan, which, when you're a fan of like a guy's college team and it's a place like Dayton, I think you probably have a little more like, oh boy, they really were looking out for me, or they really care. Mm-hmm. And I could tell like, he was like, man, I made that lady feel terrible. I bet.
I hate
like,
that.
And I was
I hate that.
I don't know. In my head, I was like, and I think and it was a little too late at that point, but I think he even thought like, I wonder if she's still out there. Like,
I would have sprinted out
there and be like, "Hey, no, I get what that's awesome. Thank you so much." And then Toumani backed that up with having his career high. So way to go, Toumani.
Way to go, Toumani. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, Casey and I are both looking at like, what is going on with that? I mean, if she made that herself, she had to make that herself.
She had to have. Yeah.
I mean, that took a long time because it was very like intricate, but it was just. I can understand why Toumani was confused because I was also confused.
It was confusing. Yeah, but and again, like you have to have I think part of it is. Like you have to have I don't really know that much about Obi Toppin, so like that was the part for me where I was like, wait, but I was like, I know he's not Belgian because he's from New York, but other than that, like, yeah, man. So that's what it was. So if you're the woman who had the custom Toumani Camara Obi Toppin 50-50 jersey, and you happen to be listening to this podcast, reach out. We'll make sure to get you your props you deserve.
And Toumani feels very bad.
Yes, and Toumani absolutely feels bad. And he did see it, but he just didn't understand it. And that's also the thing, too. Like, I feel like sometimes, when it's after a game, like you're tired, like your adrenaline's kind of pumping, like you don't really remember things. Like things just like are kind of happening. You're not even like seeing it. Like when people... like with the whole USA hockey thing, like I was like, these guys just got done playing like an incredibly emotional game. Like they don't even know what's going on right now. Like same thing with that. It's like when stuff is happening post game, guys are just kind of like okay.
Yeah.
Like, and when you do like post game interviews, you know that you've been doing a lot of post game interviews too. By the way, as I mentioned, Blazers have won 5 of their last 6. So Brooke has been very, very busy in these last trip. Which thankfully Brooke is back on the last trip because no one can do the post game interviews. I mean, like Lamar and Kev, they do their darndest, but it's not the same.
Thanks.
And they're like, they didn't even offer me the option of doing that, which a wise decision on their part.
No, well, you would have been great. You were awesome in all the interviews. You did fantastic. But thank you. Yeah, glad to be back. It's been really fun. Been really fun. It's really nice to talk with people. Everyone has been wonderful, like I said. So it's nice to be back in the mix. And it's really, it's been a really fun week. Like, it's been a fun couple weeks, that last road trip. Obviously, wish you could have picked up maybe 1 or 2 of those, but maybe that first one. Anyways, it's still great.
That Philly.
I know.
That's and kind of to the point about the team trying to round form. Those are the kind of games where if you end up in like 10th or 9th, those are the ones you look and you're like,
dang it,
we could have just won that game versus the Sixers. We could have been better in that game. We could have won that game, and that would have given us an extra game. And those are the ones you start to look, and you do that more when you're in the playoffs too. Like when you're in the play and you're already like, well, we're already kind of on the bubble anyways. So we understand that there were things we probably could have done better that didn't. But still, those are the games too where you're like, we could have gone 4-1 on that trip, but we just didn't do what we need to do in that game. And again, that's another game too where I think if you're Tiago, you're like, guys, like this is what happens. Like if we don't. Yeah, they got a bunch of guys missing. We're on the road. We're starting a trip. Everyone in the NBA can play. If we don't do what we need to do, we're going to get beat by any team. And so pay attention.
Yeah.
Care. Like, lock in a little bit. And, like we're just talking about, this is a super long season, so it can be hard to lock in because it's so long. But this is a time where you really need to do it. So, and just by the way, too, I was really glad you're back on the trip too.
Thank you.
It was nice I was hassling Brooke about doing her exercises on the plane. I only did it once. She's like, I already did them.
I did it. I know. I did it. I walked by you too, and you didn't see me. I should have been like, hey, I'm looking.
Yeah.
No, I honestly, I didn't even really sleep on any of the flights because I didn't want to. I mean, I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure I got up and moved around. So I was moving up. I had my compression sleeve. I was walking. So no, I thank you for checking on that. But yeah, I think I'm living in fear. So I'm making sure I'm doing it. I'm making sure I'm doing it. But I thought you were going to bring up that we had a really fun. You got me to actually leave my hotel room on this trip and go have dinner with Tristan and Tyra.
Yeah, no, that was fun. Well, one, I didn't mention it because I didn't know if we were telling people that you went out that night.
I just went to dinner. It's fine.
Well, I know, but I don't know if people are listening. I lied though.
What do you mean?
Because since there were other plans that night, when someone asked me like, "What'd you do last night?" I said that I went out with Tyra and Tristan, but I didn't mention you because I didn't want to be like, "Wait a minute, I thought Brooke said she wasn't going to do anything."
Well, I wasn't,
night,
but then I was really
me
hungry.
Bringing this up now is stupid. So I shouldn't even be doing this. But yes, no, we have so. If you've ever been to Minneapolis, very nice town, by the way, too. I've always been a fan of Minneapolis. If you, so we kind of stay in the downtown area. If you go over the river, there is a neighborhood that, for whatever reason, has a bunch of kind of older dive bars that all have red neon signs, and they all have pull tabs, which is so in Minnesota, their version of scratch-off tickets are pull tabs, which instead of scratching them off, and we do have them here in Oregon, or at least we used to, because I know I used to sell them at Naps IGA when I was in high school, working the lottery tobacco video counter. That you don't scratch them; they just pull off, and it's like a. It's basically the same idea as a scratch-off ticket where if you get 3 of a kind, you get some...
There's a red line through it?
But each one, but literally they're all just in a big bin, and there's a certain number of winners per each bin, and then that money goes to the local Rotary Club, a lot of what Oregon Lottery does in terms of money going to various schools and programs. It's they just do it more of a one-to-one, some lady from the Sheboygan PTA is selling pull tabs and being kind of a jerk to Brooke in the process.
Yes.
And then that money just goes to the PTA. So yeah, we went out the night before the Timberwolves game and went to I believe it's called 1029 Club. They serve lobster rolls there that are very good. So we each got one of those, and that was fun. And had a few grain belts, and went to the Northeast Yacht Club as well, which was one of the few of those red sign dive bars I hadn't been to. But yeah, we had a very nice time. It was a good evening.
Yeah,
I feel like I guess as we get towards the end of the season too, I feel like I was more active on that trip than I typically am, and I think part of it is because of our good friend Greg. But yeah, it was very fun, and thank you for coming out, Brooke. And
I'm glad I
you
did.
were. I didn't have to like hector you at all to do it, and also, but I also think it's helped that since my knee has been bothering me, and I'm not really able to like walk around as much as I typically would. Brooke also knows that like typically like if we're going somewhere and it's under a mile, I'm like, yeah, we'll just walk, and Brooke's like, I don't want to do that.
It's because it's cold for the most part.
No, and whatever the reason,
usually temperature.
Yeah, it usually is temperature. Though sometimes you do have a blood clot, and you rightfully feel like you don't want to walk. But the fact that I've been a little hobbled as well, I think Brooke was like, "Oh, we're definitely taking a car. Okay, sure, I'll go."
That might have played a role. No, but it was funny. I'll tell quickly the story that the lady who hated me for some reason. She
looked like a person that would hate people. Though.
Yeah, and I was number one on that list though, for some reason. So we weren't winning anything in the dollar ones.
Like an odd amount of losses.
Yes,
for sure.
I think I bought
like
wrong.
$25 worth, and we didn't have a single winner.
So did I. Yeah, same. So I'm like, well, let's try the $2. So I got 10 of those rather than 20 of the ones. And they were different, and they were a bit more confusing, and because the red line went straight, but also diagonal.
Yeah.
So, but I've never seen that before.
Go long on this too, because there's a lot to explain there.
Okay, so I was like, okay, well, all right, wait a second, is this a winner? Is this a winner? So I was confused. So I pulled all them up, and they're sticking straight up. The little, what do you even call those? It's not a chad, but it's a
tab.
The tab
Yeah.
they're still attached, but they're open. So I go up to the lady in the little kiosk, whatever that was. I go, hi. So I'm just confused. Like, is this a winner? Even though it's diagonal, and is this a winner? And how much would it be? She looks at me. She goes, well, they're not worth anything until you take the tabs off them. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I look, I'm sure my face was just like aghast, and I know it was. And then I just turned around and I walked back. I go, you will not believe that lady was so mean to me. And so we took all the tabs
and then I started like performatively like ripping every single one off and being like, and like I had a whole stack of them. I wanted to be like, hey, check all these, ma'am.
Yeah, check every single one. So I took them off and went back up, and I had won like $56. Thank goodness we asked. And she still hated me.
Which I like. It happened on the last, like it happened in New York when we were at that bar, and like I was a jerk to you. Like I don't. If I'm confused why they're not being jerks to me. I'm the jerk. Like I'm the one that used to be being mean to. I'm the one that's like being I'm trying not to curse. Like I'm the one that's an asshole here. Like, and Brooke is so nice to everybody, and people like are kind of a jerk to you, like on a semi-consistent basis. And I don't.
And
like,
it's the first interaction. It's not like
It's almost like they see that you're nice and they take that as weakness, and then they're like, "Well, I'm gonna
ruin her day."
In her place. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. It's very interesting that happened numerous times in the last couple months.
Yeah.
But thank goodness, I just laughed off with you guys, and I got $56 for the interaction. So
which was great. But where you will always get better service at is
Tell
Spirit
me.
Mountain Casino, where the Spirit Mountain Casino features hundreds of state-of-the-art slot games that are much better than pull tabs, including the brand new games like Frankenstein Returns, which does not feature Jacob Elordi, but maybe it does.
Ooh.
Spirit Mountain Casino is the first to offer Frankenstein Returns, so don't forget to play it at Spirit Mountain first. Also, you want to check out the table games at Spirit Mountain Casino because they are about to get extreme. They now offer 21 plus 3 Extreme, which is where big fun meets big pays through poker-style hands. Their $5 side bet progressives is over $100,000 and counting. Could you be the next lucky winner at Spirit Mountain Casino, Highway 18 in Grand Ronde? They would never be a jerk to Brooke. Elevate your game.
Good one.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. Yeah, and that dovetailed nicely there. So before we... now that we've talked about the games that have gotten them there, let's talk about the play-in explicitly real fast, Brooke. As I've mentioned, and as you may or may not know, the way the play-in works is the bottom 4 teams, the 7, 8, 9, 10 teams, end up participating in a quote-unquote tournament. calling it a tournament's a little weird. Like it's 2 games, but that's kind of tournament-y. I don't know what else they would call it. I guess you just call it the play-in. That's what a lot of people call it. But either way, so the way it works is 7 plays 8, and the winner of the 7-8 automatically advances. They get the 7th seed. The loser of the 7-8 then plays the winner of the 9-10. The loser of the 9-10, that team is eliminated. The winner of the 9-10 then plays the loser of the 7-8 in the house of the 7-8 loser, and then the winner of that game then goes on and gets the 8th seed. And that is the situation the Trailblazers are going to be in here. It starts, so the last game of the season is April 12th versus the Sacramento Kings. And I think they do that thing where all the games start at the same time. So they don't want teams to be able to see what other teams have done and either win or lose depend on that. So like now they do it's called something in like golf too, where like everyone starts at the same time.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I know exactly. My dad would know.
Whatever. Yeah, but it's that thing. So on the 12th, and it probably seems like it'll probably go. That will decide the order at that point in time. The way it's shaking out, it seems likely that the order of the play-in will not be defined until probably the last day of the season. And then those first play-in games could start. I think they won't be on Mondays, so they won't be on Monday the 13th, but then they start on the 14th. So I believe the play-in tournament runs the 14th through the 17th, and then the playoffs start on the 18th. So here in less than, again, in 3 weeks, Trailblazers playing a win-or-go-home game most likely. As of right now, as I mentioned, the 7th team is the Phoenix Suns at 40-33, 17 games back from the leading Oklahoma City Thunder. You have the Clippers, who are currently in 8th at 37-36. They are 20 games back, so they are 3 games behind the Phoenix Suns. I don't know which one of those teams holds a tiebreaker. But also, as I told you the other day, I don't care about tiebreakers until they actually matter. Like when people are like, we should be ahead of the Golden State Warriors because we have the tiebreaker. Yes, that's true. But the tiebreaker only matters once you need to break a tie. And as of right now, they don't need to break a tie. Your Portland Trailblazers, as I mentioned, are in 9th place at 37-37. They are 20.5 games behind the Thunder, so that means they are just a half game behind the Clippers in 8th, and then the Golden State Warriors at 35-38, 22 games back. Still in the mix, but and they've won their last 2, and I think they had lost a number of games in a row prior to that. So I was curious about that too. So the Blazers are also the only team in the top 8 that currently have a negative point differential. They're at minus 1.2, and I thought that perhaps with the last 2 games being 30-plus point wins, that they might be in the positive. Not yet the case, but they might get there before the end of the season. And one of the reasons why is because they've had some pretty bad losses this year. I was wondering if you took out that Denver game and made it a 20-point loss instead of a whatever it was. What's it, 15 points?
Something like that.
I don't even want to remember it. If you took that out and just replaced it with just a bad loss, not a super bad loss, where their point differential would be at. But that's really neither here nor there. But that is the situation the Trailblazers are in. They are currently in 9th. 8th is still very much in play. And again, the games versus the Clippers, if everything kind of goes chalk between now and then, will likely define which team is in 8th and which team is in 9th. Still a chance to creep up on the Suns there, but, dwindling as the games go on. The Clippers finish off their season versus the Pacers, Bucks. So very similar to the Trailblazers. You figure those are probably going to be wins. And then they face the Portland Trailblazers in a nationally televised game. But we were also broadcasting, or we're doing that game, right?
Which one?
The at Clippers?
Yeah.
Awesome. It's an NBC Peacock game, so I don't know if they got that on their own. But
no.
We are.
Okay.
I was more trying to inform the audience where everything I've heard is we're doing it. I think maybe we reached that threshold where we've done enough games, which look at us. National TV games, so on and so forth. And then after they face the Trailblazers, they have the Spurs, the Kings, the Mavs, the Thunder, the Blazers once again, and then they finish off with the Golden State Warriors. So their end of season schedule, I would say, is pretty similar to our end of season schedule in terms of they've got a number of games versus teams that are have called it for the most part. They do have a few games versus teams that are still very good and fighting for playoff position. So particularly the game versus the Thunder and San Antonio. The Blazers also play San Antonio and Denver still. So those games kind of cancel each other out. So it really is going to go down, it seems like, to those last two games versus the Clippers to decide who's going to, again, potentially get 8th. And at that point in time, maybe even 7th too. Let's go ahead and real fast, Brooke, and see what are the Phoenix Suns doing to finish off their 2025-26 regular season. So the Phoenix Suns are currently at 40-33. As mentioned, Devin Booker back in the lineup. They have the Jazz, Grizzlies, Magic, Hornets, Bulls, Rockets, Mavs, Lakers, Oklahoma City. So tough. I would say that's more difficult than the closing schedule for both the Blazers and the Clippers, but they also have 3 games in the win column versus both the Blazers and the Clippers. So, boy, that could come down to like 3-way ties at that point in time too. So should be, again, some pretty interesting scoreboard watching. And you're right, Brooke. I get up in the morning now and I think to myself like, I wonder who played last night.
I was look at the standings following Gamecast on my phone.
Yeah, I do that as like a treat at the end of nights. I'm like, well, let's see what the Clippers are doing. And the last couple of times it's been like, oh, they're winning by like 40 in the fourth quarter. Okay. And sometimes I even like when I'm writing my recap, I'm like, the game's not over yet. So who's to say what happens in that one? But yeah, it's gonna come down to the wire, Brooke, which I think that was the goal of the NBA when they instituted the play-in was, there's been so much talk about tanking. And I think Adam Silver even had comments at the Board of Governors this week saying like, we are going to make changes going into next season. I'm really curious to see what those are going to look like. But one of the changes they made was to add the play-in, which keeps teams that would otherwise not have a chance to be in the postseason, keeps them engaged. And I think it's worked out pretty well. And so you have a situation now where, you look at the Western Conference standings at least, and there's a lot of, the Lakers in 3rd, the Nuggets in 4th, the Timberwolves in 5th, and the Rockets in 6th are all separated by 3.5 games. So a lot of playoff positioning going on for those teams. The Spurs are only behind the Thunder by 2 games. And then at the bottom of the table, you have the Suns, Clippers, Blazers, and Warriors, who are all could conceivably switch spots in the last 3 weeks of the season, which
it's exciting.
That's what you want. Again, like I hope people are paying attention because like that's pretty fun basketball. There's things to be played for at the end of the season. And, the NBA season gets knocked sometimes as being too long and it drags on a bit, but like there's a lot to be decided in these last 3 weeks of the year, which I think that's great. Like lock in, folks, pay attention. And also too, like who's going to win it this year? Like I think the Thunder are probably the odds-on favorite, but
yeah,
Spurs have been pretty good.
Never count Denver out.
You don't count Denver out. I think the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards has been out, but I think he's mostly just probably kind of resting up for the playoffs. Like they could be right there. The Rockets seem like they're kind of coming apart at the seams a little bit. I don't know what's going on there exactly, other than maybe the Kevin Durant burner phone stuff, which I don't like. That was like all the. Were you the one that asked me, like, is that like when I was at All-Star Weekend, was that you? There was like, are people talking about it a lot? And I was like, I literally don't even know.
I thought it was it was like a big deal for a second. And then.
Yeah. Well, either way, they're kind of playing like a team that's like, let's see how that goes. But, and then you got the Pistons, but, with Cade.
Yeah.
Cunningham out. Like, what is that? Cade McNown. God, I'm sorry. Cade Cunningham. How dare I? Celtics, they got Jason Tatum back. Boy, yeah, it should be a fun playoffs.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited.
And it should be fun playing as well. And your Trailblazers are going to be there. So if nothing else, at least one play-in game, if not 2 play-in games, hopefully, well, I won't say hopefully a home game, because in theory, if you were 8th, you'd rather not have a home game, because if you just beat the 7th team on the road, then you would get the 7th seed. So, but I think likely to have a home game at least. So again, a lot of fun stuff happened here in the last couple weeks of the season. Reason to pay attention, reason to get out to Moda Center if you haven't yet already. And also, play-in tickets are on sale now. So we don't know who will be playing, when we'll be playing, if we'll be playing even at Moda Center, but the tickets are available. And I would suggest you get them because it should be fun.
It's been
even like the game versus the Spurs this year in the NBA Cup game, where the Blazers would have had a chance to advance. They ended up losing that game, but even like the energy in the building was like it was a bit different.
Absolutely.
It was fun, yeah. So I think the play-in is going to be something very similar to that, and probably in excess of that, because again, you're talking about a chance to potentially qualify for the postseason. So should be a good time. I hope to see you out at Moda Center, and we will be talking you through the next couple weeks of the season, and hopefully in the play-in / playoffs as well. We will do we got to do like some kind of legendary edition for the play-in, Brooke. Especially if you guys aren't going to get to broadcast it, like you got to take all that energy and all of your takes that you bring into the broadcast and bring them to the podcast, to the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino.
I'll be ready.
Whichever one that'll be.
Whatever that one will be, I'll be ready.
All right. Well, until then, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to the Blazers Balcony, the Briefcase, and Section 113. That's Travis's podcast as well. And check us out on YouTube. We're there. I gotta maybe change out right now it's just the logo of the podcast. I feel like it should be something a little more interactive. I don't know exactly if I can do that. Maybe just like if it was like
we have many pictures.
Like arms folded back to back kind of thing.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we should do that. Something like that. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk soon.
Peace out.